Hello. Welcome to Security, Cryptography, whatever. I'm Deirdre.
I'm David.
We don't have Thomas. Thomas has COVID. We're very sad, but he sounds like he's on the mend, even though he's still infectious. So today we get to talk about real world crypto is coming up again. And we get to talk about it without Thomas again. So
a podcast tradition.
Yeah, where it's a new SCW tradition of there will be a real world crypto and we want to talk about it and we don't have a Thomas with us. So we'll see if we can get a streak going. Other things we want to talk about today is a blockbuster report from the Google Project Zero team about some remote code executions at the baseband level in some Samsung chips. Mm-hmm. And it sounds kind of bad.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just go into that first?
Yeah.
The longtime listener might remember that this podcast started out by complaining about the security of phones. And then we learned that this podcast was going to have guests when Justin Shu called us and was like, I'm coming on your podcast to talk about phones after we talked about phones. And that was where we got our start. So vulnerabilities in phones have been our bread and butter.
At least for this one, this is not an Android thing or an iOS thing or even a specifically like Pixel thing or an iPhone thing. This is in Samsung Exynos chipsets, or however you pronounce that, are in a lot of devices that actually like connect the rest of your computer to the network.
Yeah, they're the modems, right?
Like the specific modem they'll actually connect, like turn your cellular connection into something you can do, TCP/IP over. And Project Zero usually does this 90-day disclosure deadline. They find a bug or a vulnerability. They disclose it to a vendor, and they say, you've got 90 days to fix this and patch this, or we're just going to tell people because people need to know about this. And for this one, they found 18 vulns. They disclosed 18 things, and some of them have CVEs, but some of them are very severe, but they are telling people that they should turn off Wi-Fi calling and voice over LTE on vulnerable devices, but they're not fully disclosing the nature of these 4 worst vulnerabilities. Is that correct?
Yeah, and like 2G and 3G are going away, which means that like voice over LTE is like the only option for voice in a lot of places. And like I don't even know that you can turn it off on some phones now. Like I think it's just like a thing, and the only way to turn it off is
I tried to turn it off, and it didn't. That was not a thing I could do.
Yeah, you just have to like I don't know, I guess turn off all calling or something.
Yeah.
Only use Google Meet for calls.
Oh God. So some of the affected devices. Okay, so the actual like risk is a remote attacker can get remote code execution on your phone by just doing no user interaction at all. The attacker just needs to know your phone number. For example, if these chips are in mobile phones or the mobile modems of certain cars that have them deployed, which also sounds really shitty. And they're able to remotely compromise a phone at the baseband level with no user interaction. And that sounds really bad. It's really bad.
Yeah.
This is not even like this is not at the OS level. This is below the OS level. This is like the firmware or capability built into these actual chips before it even gets out of like the modem level of the actual chips, firmware, before it even gets out of there into the OS level and that privilege ring.
It's presumably some sort of like buffer overflow and some sort of parsing done on the chip or something like that. But
yeah, I mean, yeah. And so some of the devices that are affected include Pixel 6, Pixel 7, which really sucks because those are generally pretty good phones. But this is in one of your hardware dependencies, as it were. A bunch of Samsung phones. Like there's a long list of this. We'll put the blog post from Project Zero in our show notes. And any vehicles that use the Exynos Auto chips T5123 chipset. And so now I really need to go check what kind of chips are in our cars. My old ass car is probably fine, but we have a newer car, and I want to check about that one.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, how, like, even if your car doesn't do, like, internet or something, it may still just, like, have a modem in it for the purpose of downloading, like, updates to itself and so
Yes.
on. That's effectively just paid for by the manufacturer.
Yeah, like they're newer cars that don't do anything, quote, smart. They're not doing like an over-the-air update like the Teslas do, but they still have a modem in the car for things like OnStar and like trying to find your location and having like emergency calling or something like that.
Or just updating the head unit, I think, even if it's not like giving you Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can just completely remotely compromise my car in certain ways with silently, that's not fun. So one of the ways to, if you have like a regular mobile phone, to mitigate this is to turn off Wi-Fi calling. And if you have voice over LTE toggleable in your device, you can turn that off as well. I was able to turn off Wi-Fi calling, but not voice over LTE on my Pixel. Yeah. This is just kind of wild.
This is just further proof you shouldn't ever call anybody or accept any calls.
Yeah, I generally live by this philosophy, but sometimes the world just forces me to pick up the phone because they just will not communicate in an asynchronous manner. And I think it's very rude of the world. This is kind of wild because the Project Zero team withheld details about some of the worst vulnerabilities even when they went beyond the 90 days. Basically because they said they were so bad and they thought that disclosing them would distinctly privilege an attacker versus defenders trying to mitigate them. So they've disclosed them, and there's like 14 of these 18 that are out in the open. They have a bunch of CVEs, but the worst ones are not yet.
Yeah. Well, 4 have been past their 90-day deadline and withheld for safety reasons. 4 have passed their 90-day deadline and are public. And 10 have not yet passed their 90-day deadline.
Okay. Wild. Thanks, Project Zero. I wanted another reason to turn off Wi-Fi calling. Cool. All right. What else? So, Real World Crypto's coming up. They've got a cool program out. I'm going. It'll be fun. If we get this out before Real World Crypto, see you in Japan. We've got the cherry blossom season happening and all of that, and it'll be nice to see the other side of the world again. But we've got a program. We've got
IETF. IETF is also happening in Tokyo around roughly the same time. So,
and there are some people who are grumpy. They're like, "Why did you pick this place and time?" And we're like, the IACR people are like, "We picked it over a year ago." So like, I don't know what to tell you. Just happened to be all in the same place at the same time. Maybe everyone likes the cherry blossoms. But I am excited to see some of these. I want to catch up on some of this stuff, including some PQC stuff. Breaking masked Kyber by copy paste. Kyber is the PQC finalist from the NIST post-quantum competition. And like masking is a technique that you usually do to mitigate side channel analysis and side channel attacks. So this is, I'm very interested to see like exactly how they were able to attack this, because, you know, when you have like kind of traditional techniques of trying to implement your cryptography in a resilient way, and you're just sort of like, nah, I could just go whip. I am very interested.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like power analysis on an ARM Cortex M4. And so like you probably only care about this if you're making like putting Kyber into like an HSM or a hardware wallet. And even then it's not clear how much you care about this, because the fact that like I don't know. It's almost like a feature that several years after you make like a hardware wallet, the technology gets good enough that you can side channel the key out of it, you know, just in case, right?
But this is sort of the thing though, because like especially with NIST, like they want to be able to deploy it in some of these embedded environments, or they want to be able to deploy it in environments where those attacks would be in scope. And if the sort of mitigations that they basically say, like if you want to be resilient to power analysis and side channel attacks, you should use this masking technique, or, you know, this implementation technique for your, say, field arithmetic if you're doing stuff with like elliptic curves. And this attack is just basically, nope, no, not for you.
I think it's a reminder of like what Nate said when he was on, that like when you're building systems like these, you shouldn't build one where like everything falls apart if you compromise the security of like an embedded device at the edge. So
that's true.
Assume that someone can do power analysis and get the key out, and hopefully that, only affects that device.
Yes.
And not like, I don't know, every credit card reader or something. I don't know that actually happens,
but like it's not like the same embedded key in every single device, and if you crack one, like everything falls down. That would be very bad. And hopefully these Kyber deployments do not. Well, you never know. Kyber is going to be for a whole bunch of stuff, for chems and for anything else that needs to establish keys between two parties. So you never know. We've got some more attacks on Frodo. With Frodo is interesting because it got pretty far in the post-quantum competition. It's another lattice-based learning with errors sort of deal. Ring learning with errors. That's, Frodo in the ring. Ring learning with errors.
Yes. I believe a former podcast guest, Chris Pikert,
yes,
worked on Frodo Chem.
Yeah, I think
that's definitely the main title that he has.
Former podcast guest. And this is using Rowhammer on FrodoChem. That's neat. So Rowhammer is actually a technique based on like bit flipping in memory. It's not necessarily specific to any one crypto system. It's exploiting a kind of like underlying physical weirdness about memory, where if you like do certain reads and writes in a certain pattern, and I'm wiggling my fingers right now that no one can see because it's a podcast, and you like do bit flips on either side of like a line in memory, a cache line or whatever, you can influence it and make it flip the wrong way. And it's basically a way to leak information out of a side channel in a weird way. And I guess they use that against Frodo, which is interesting. I don't know if Rowhammer is like moving forward and like attacks. I don't see a lot of Rowhammer. Like I feel like Rowhammer happened and then Spectre and Meltdown happened, and there's been a little bit less focus on Rowhammer. Or am I just sort of showing my ass or something?
I don't know. I didn't keep up with it.
Yeah, but this is neat. Poisoning required. Achieving public key poisoning requires an extreme engineering effort. because Frodo Chem's keygen is so fast. You can do keygen in 8 milliseconds, which is one of the pluses of all of these lattice-based schemes, is they can be very fast. They're not very space efficient. I kind of love that though. Like, kudos to the attackers, but like sometimes efficiency is not just good because you, the person using it, want it to be efficient, and you want to get in like a bunch of signatures and a bunch of, key establishment, and like it's just nice to have things go fast. It can actually be a mitigation against attack. It can be much harder to leverage an attack against a crypto system that goes really, really, really fast. And so last year we talked about, what was the attack on SIDH? Hertzbleed.
Yeah, Hertzbleed.
Yeah. And at the time, it was an over the network side channel attack to break SIDH and Psych. And like my first question was like, okay, well, can you do it against some crypto system that's not so slow? And the answer is, yeah, they could do it, but it was harder. And then later, SIDH and Psych got broken for completely different reasons. Having to do with auxiliary points, but the kind of point stands is that it becomes harder to leverage these attacks against a very fast crypto system. Yeah. Even if you're not doing a keygen every time. But if you're doing chem, you are doing keygen.
And Rowhammer specifically, I think we did reasonably well at mitigating it in both firmware and hardware RAM modules. I haven't kept up with the state of the art, but...
Did Chrome do stuff with isolation and JavaScript to help mitigate Rowhammer? I think that was before. I don't recall.
I think that was mostly for Spectre.
All right. Because I just remember being able to just run some JavaScript and you could trigger rowhammer and you could get, leak memory out of places you weren't supposed to. And it was just like, whoa.
There was like I read there's a rowhammer plus NACL exploit at some point that I think they found some way to mitigate it. NACL in this case being native client.
Yeah, not sodium
Not
or
lib
libsodium,
yeah.
the descendant of NACL, the crypto library. Naming collisions suck for people who don't know about each other. And the last one in that section is protecting crystals dilithium, which is yet another lattice-based post-quantum scheme. I think
that's a signature, right?
I think dilithium is the signature and Kyber is the chem. And I know less about dilithium. So I'm very interested in this. This might be more, mitigations of these lattice-based post-quantum implementations and how to deploy them.
And they're related because Kyber is the lightsaber crystals and dilithium are the Star Trek warp crystals.
And they made it easier by just calling it just crystals, all caps, dash Kyber, and crystals dash dilithium, because we're all a bunch of nerds. It's either Star Wars and lightsabers or Lord of the Rings.
Nerds in this establishment? No, I can't believe that would be happening.
Yeah. Next section is post-quantum protocols and agility. I kind of love this because it's literally like we have a bunch of protocols that we've built like Signal, like TLS, like Noise, that all were built around these pre-quantum primitives. And now we're just like, how do we move these forward into a post-quantum world? There's a lot of pieces we get to keep, like our block ciphers and our hash functions and a lot of key derivation stuff. But there's some stuff that don't have like real straightforward post-quantum slot-ins. Like we have all these chems now, but chems are shaped differently than Diffie-Hellman, for example. We use Diffie-Hellman all over the place in places like TLS and Signal. So what do you do to make those protocols at the top level post-quantum secure? And this whole section is basically about that.
Chems all look like TLS RSA key negotiation, which we dropped because of RSA and because it requires an extra round trip. And now like all this less RTT stuff is like, or the not zero RTT, the one RTT, or just
one
like
RTT.
Decreased key RTT key negotiation stuff kind of goes out the window, or you have to rethink it in this chem world, which is disappointing.
Yeah, that's why like we're just holding on with SIDH, because SIDH was like full on Diffie-Hellman like. You just had to decide that like the client would always be Alice or the server would always be Bob or vice versa. And you have something that is very Diffie-Hellman shaped. But then it fell down to an active adaptive attack. So we were like, okay, well, you can use psych. And then you couldn't do that either. So RIP SIDH.
And they're all freaking gigantic. They're what, like...
Except SIDH wasn't. It was the small one.
Yeah.
But all the ones we
all
have...
the chems are gigantic. You're what are we, like 500 bytes or something for like a chem, and like 1 to 10 kilobytes for a signature or something ridiculous like that.
Something like that. It's either 500 or 700 something bytes for these chems, for these lattice-based chems.
Yeah, and a TLS handshake right now can easily have 2 signatures in the cert chain, one on the leaf, one on the intermediate. You don't need to verify the root. And then each of those, like you probably have 3 SCTs at least in the leaf. So we'll call that like 5 signatures. And then a signature over the key exchange. So you've got 6 signatures. So if you just did like a naive, plug in some post-quantum algorithms, right? You're looking at like 10 kilobytes or something insane of signatures.
I think the smallest parameter set for dilithium, which is the post-quantum finalist, is 2.5 kilobytes for the smallest one, and I don't know which security level is appropriate.
We're talking about like a non-negligible portion of a floppy disk, like in the naive update of the TLS handshake.
Yeah, and that's like to compare to maybe a DSA signature, which is 64 bytes or something like that.
Yeah, usually
it's small because you have like a point or even like a x coordinate of a point and a scalar, which is another 32 byte value, and then you have a lovely little signature, and you could just throw tons of them into your whatever your signature chain or your back and forth of your protocol. And now it gets harder. So trying to adapt for a post-quantum world, we've got post-quantum noise, which I'm interested about. Noise is the pattern of how you establish a secure channel that underlies WireGuard, it underlies Tailscale, a friend of the pod Tailscale. And you might see the noise protocol in a whole bunch of places. Like you might see it in your WhatsApp. They're using it under the hood there so that you can send your encrypted WhatsApps from WhatsApp web or whatever it was, or at least you did once upon a time. Noise shows up all over the place nowadays. It's really nice. Shout out to Trevor Perrin, who came up with the noise protocol. And what are they doing here? So they're slotting in these chems, and they're updating noise to PQ noise. And I can't tell much more from this abstract, but I am very interested. And then they prove a bunch of things about it in their new model. What is a face model? FACCE? I don't know what that stands for. But I'm excited to look at it. Shout out to Peter Schwabe, who's done a lot of research in this area. It's very cool. I'm very excited about post-quantum privacy pass. Using the privacy pass is a cool protocol that was developed by some people at Cloudflare at the time, including friend of the pod, George Chankersley. I think Filippo Vilsorda was involved in it, but has become a lovely evolving protocol. Apple has used it. I think Google has used it, where you can, using anonymous credentials, do something like a CAPTCHA challenge. The server, having accepted your CAPTCHA challenge, basically gives you a bunch of anonymous credentials. You can show up to the service, say you're trying to use a Cloudflare service from Tor, and you're trying to keep your privacy, your IP private. But instead of Cloudflare being like, I don't know who you are, you're coming at me from behind a Tor exit node, you can hand the service behind Cloudflare an anonymous credential that you were authorized before. They can verify it and authorize you, and you can access, say, twitter.com via Tor, because they know that you were a real person, because the only way that they can verify your credential is because they gave it to you in the past and you passed a challenge in the past. So this is a very attractive thing for basically privacy preserving stuff out in the world. Another fun one is in Signal's protocol, when they're trying to do private updates to group metadata. They do a little bit of this anonymous credential shuffling so that they don't know who is updating the group metadata. They just know that someone that they have previously given anonymous credentials to is doing the adding a new person to the group or making some update to the group metadata. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so post-quantum privacy pass, anonymous credentials are one of those things that don't have an obvious post-quantum solution for. And it looks like the solution is a ZK dilithium doing a zero-knowledge proof of knowledge, a Stark, not a snark, based on dilithium 2 to do this. So instead of just full-on commitments and revealing commitments that you can do with something just like a abstract group, which I think the original privacy pass used, can do it with one of these Stark constructions. It's a little bit more complicated. The downside is that the token size is somewhere between 76 and 172 kilobytes.
Yeah,
which is big.
One of the use cases for privacy pass things right now is Google calls it private state tokens, which is what if we just put privacy pass on the web generally and made anti-bot stuff, just a thing that anybody could use, but without tracking. At least that's the goal. Yeah. And man, shuffling around 76 to 172 kilobytes, as something that looks like a cookie. Yeah. It's
not going to look like a cookie anymore. It's going to look like that's even, okay. You can get megabyte bundles of JavaScript on the regular. Mm-hmm. So this is not terrible from a web usability speed perspective, but it is from all the places we have previously been able to shove anonymous credentials that are a lot smaller than this. Probably you'll have to do some, get a crowbar and just crowbar out your protocol to fit this big guy in there.
Yeah. I mean,
verification, 30 milliseconds, that's not so bad.
I don't know that it's good that we're just like downloading megabytes of JavaScript all the time, right? That kind of feels like, not the fact that it's JavaScript, but it just kind of feels like a step backwards.
I feel like this is one of those never-ending, tug of wars, which is like we make things faster so that things are more performant, so things will be faster, and then we fill up that performance.
It's the induced demand problem. It's just like adding a lane to a highway. Like
exactly.
Every time a web browser gets 10% faster, users open 10% more tabs, and then they're like, "Why does my browser keep getting slow?" Right? Like this is a real thing.
Yes, 100%. Anyway, I'm very interested in that. I'm interested in any of the new post-quantum solutions to some of the things that don't have kind of straightforward replacements, because we need them for a whole bunch of cryptography that's currently deployed. If we want to make each of these things post-quantum resilient, we need some of the results like this. So I'm very interested in that one.
Next session, we've got network security and key exchange. The things that jump out to me here as like a curmudgeonly secure transport person are the iCloud private relay, talk in depth, loosely, how that works. But I'm sure that some more details would be interesting. Anything that they have to share there.
Yes.
Looks like we have both Apple and Cloudflare people on this talk.
Yeah. Chris Wood is my co-author. Chris Wood's at Cloudflare on the Frost IETF specification. He's pretty cool and smart. So good luck to them on that nice talk. So it looks like there will be Zooms for some people who are not going to be in the flesh in Tokyo, which is good. Hopefully, okay, sidebar. Every time Apple gives a presentation at Real World Crypto, there's always a bit of a debate about whether Apple is going to come and be like, you can't record this, you can't live stream this, you can't have a phone, you can't have a camera. Like, they have done that in the past. So I'm very curious to see, like, if they won't allow it to live stream. I have live tweeted and posted pictures from previous Apple presentations at Real World Crypto in the past, and no one at Apple has come and tracked me down and threatened me. So I will probably...
it's not like you left an unreleased iPhone at a bar.
No, I would never do that. No, I would never do that. I've never used an iPhone. But I will try to do that.
How's your baseband firmware doing?
Oh, fuck. I will probably live tweet it just because I am also on Mastodon and the server just has latency, and I'm still on Twitter. And even though Elon Musk is doing his damnedest to drive it into the ground, I will probably just keep doing it on there. So anyway,
I will probably be asleep because it's Tokyo. I just assume everything that happens in Tokyo happens while I'm asleep.
It's 15 hours ahead of you. So, yes. Anyway, hopefully they will allow this to be live streamed, because then we could record it. But even if they don't record it, I will try to get as much detail about that as possible, because it's interesting. And Apple does interesting things. Yeah,
the other one jumping out to me here is the TLS Anvil adapting combinatorial testing for TLS libraries. Doesn't look like they found anything like too groundbreaking in there, but always good to have more tools like this. And they have a really big number in terms of like flaws that they found, even if none of them get big fancy names.
Yeah.
116 problems related to incorrect alert handling and 100 other issues across all tested libraries, and then 2 new exploits in Matrix SSL.
Jesus. Where does this testing
I assume this is in like state machine type testing.
No, but like, is this public? Can we go look at this?
I assume it's open source based on the authors.
Okay. I'm interested.
They're the same people that created the TLS attacker tool.
Cool. All right. This is so useful, and this is so good for updating TLS for post-quantum stuff. Like, it's not necessarily done yet. What else? Wi-Fi encryption.
I think the big takeaway is to just not use Matrix SSL.
Yeah. I mean, where is that deployed? That's like an embedded one, right?
It's like a C++ SSL library. I'm not quite sure who uses it. The big embedded one is... It's the one from like ARM or Qualcomm, and I always embed TLS. Yeah, that's the big one.
So that's not the same. Okay, yeah. Cellular radio, null ciphers in Android. Cool. Hey, Yamna. Yamna's really cool. They do cellular security stuff a lot. Whatever they found, I'm very interested to tell me how my phones are broken even some more. And then I don't know, careful with MAC then sign, ad hoc lightweight authenticated key exchange protocol. Not familiar. Or, wait, I mean, any of the lightweight stuff, I don't pay very close attention to because I just don't tend to work in a lightweight environment.
Yeah, but if it wasn't for post-quantum, some of the primitives there are really cool. Duplex objects are just like the greatest thing ever when doing protocol handshakes, which, as discussed, is like the only thing that I care about. It's like if you think about it in like noise or kind of TLS, you basically like you maintain your kind of encryption state of like, and then your handshake state. And then at some point you have to like hash everything that came through and make sure that the states align and that nobody tampered with your handshake. And like, that's fine. That's not like horrendous to do or anything. Duplex objects let you combine that into a single state. So the operations you get are like encrypt, decrypt, squeeze, and and like
absorb?
MAC. So absorb and squeeze basically. Yeah. So basically like effectively like shove data in and then get a MAC.
Yeah.
And so you just use that for everything in the handshake, and then at some point you roll your Diffie-Hellman into the squeeze like privately, and then you pop out a MAC. You check that everything aligns on both sides, and
nice.
You can squeeze out a key too. It's great.
God, there's like a hash function. There's like all these sponge-based hashes nowadays that like I think are the foundation to that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you need a sponge. Cyclist is like a general construction, and then you can apply it to like any sponge. And so there's Zoodoo, and then was the hash function, and then Zodiac I think was the instantiation of Cyclist by the SHA-3 people. It's a different hash function that went into the NIST competition, and then there were some others that I assume did similar things.
I just Googled sponge crypto, and the first thing was there's a coin called sponge, like a cryptocurrency. And I'm just like, damn it. Damn it.
Anyway, the takeaway here is something got picked by the NIST lightweight crypto competition, and it is also a duplex object. I don't know. And it is not from the regular crowd that usually wins these. So it wasn't Zoodoo and it wasn't Zodiac. It was not the
the Belgians. It was not from the Belgians this time. The Belgians are great, but got someone else this time. Cool. Next session, building and breaking secure systems, WhatsApp end-to-end encrypted backups. Cool. I think we talked about this previously, but this is like there's some HSMs on their back end. They deployed a bunch of stuff, and they made it. You can end-to-end encrypt your decrypted texts once they reach one of your WhatsApp ends to WhatsApp, to their cloud, so they can't look at your backups, so that if your phone or your computer falls in the river, you can log into WhatsApp on a new phone and be like, give me my messages, please, my history of messages. And they did it in a nice way because they have kind of the straightforward way, which is like derive a key or derive a like very good password, and that is your key and you must remember it, which is nice for the people that like really want to do that. But they also have, I think they have this HSM protected, you set a password for your key that is encrypted under your password, and that encrypted blob lives in their HSMs, so that it's better for, and then like they do the key stretching and whatever from your password, like PBK, whatever the new hotness for PBK, DF or whatever. And it was just very nice that they were able to deploy like the thing, like it makes sense that it could just do it like that, but they deployed it straight off the bat. So I'm very interested in this whole talk because their white paper is all right. They haven't written, they have like a few page white paper officially from WhatsApp. I'm interested to see what they say on the specifics about this, although it's only half an hour.
And then they presumably throw away the credentials to the HSM. I believe Apple described it as a one-way physical hash function, aka a shredder.
Yeah.
And, having talked to some people who have worked at Apple, that did actually happen.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah, the Apple HSMs, if you get Apple iCloud backup service in China, they are required to live in China and use Chinese hardware and things like that. So that's a whole other ball of wax.
I don't know about the China ones.
Other in this channel, end-to-end encrypted cloud storage is hard, from another friend of the pod, Kenny Patterson, talking about Mega and their further attacks on Mega, which is supposed to be encrypted backup in their cloud storage thing. And then a thing about e-voting in the French elections and how they broke it. Neat. Everyone keeps trying to do that.
Without Thomas here, we'll never know if either of these count as stunt hacking.
Yeah, we need that professional eye to rank them. But yeah, I like all this stuff because it's this whole session is building and breaking secure systems. But whenever you have end-to-end encryption, like people lose their devices. The devices become the repository because the provider can't back up things for you, or if they can back things up for you, it has to be encrypted as well. This is sort of like the natural kind of follow-on state from end-to-end encrypting things is you need to have backups or fallbacks in some way. And then designing those also relies on secure encryption, secure design, and all that sort of stuff. Cool. There's some stuff about crypto for people.
Yeah, we've got a talk from Stephen Samoji about design applied cryptography in humans.
Cool.
He's from
Humans
Google.
cool.
He does a lot of, anti-abuse, that type of stuff. Stuff
cool.
for the people,
For humans. Cryptography for grassroots organizing. I know Seni Kamara does a lot of encrypted search stuff. If I recall correctly, not like fully homomorphic encryption stuff, but like kind of the stuff that has been ongoing before fully homomorphic encryption was a thing.
He gave the keynote at Crypto in, I want to say 2020. That was very good. That roughly covered how most of the work in crypto ends up just kind of helping like cloud providers. And not a lot of it is directly applicable to Joe Sixpack, to steal a term from John McCain.
And this talk seems to be about collecting information about people, decentralizing movements, using cryptographic tools to adapt the to the existing trust and communication protocols of organizing from physical to digital spaces. Great. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah, that should be good.
Yeah. And then PPM, privacy preserving measurement and private information retrieval from Sophia Celli, Pete Snyder, Alex Davidson. I know Sophia works at Brave. This is cool because I think Sophia is part of a new IETF working group on private measurement protocols like PPM. And if you've ever heard of PRIO,
yes.
And I think the newer one is STAR, which is trying to be able to collect metrics in a kind of private aggregate way and using kind of similar things to multi-party computation techniques so that you can get useful statistics out of private aggregate data. And I'm very happy to see more of those because currently the metrics that we use in the world, like think Google Analytics, think the crash reporting on your Android app or iOS app. It tends to be just sort of like you hand it over to the app developer or the service provider that the app developer is contracting with, and they just say, "Oh, we treat your data very securely. We encrypt it in transit."
Yeah.
And our data, like our hard drives that our databases run on are encrypted or something like that. It's like, okay, you can see everything. It's just not spilling out on the internet. So this is very nice because then it can be just, you don't necessarily care all the time about individual users or individual apps metrics. You do care about like, we have a baseline across all of our deployed apps that like the 90th percentile response rate is blah. And then you deploy a change and then, oh no, that time doubles or, whatever. So in those sort of situations, privacy preserving metrics, if they're performant, are just a no-brainer. So it'll be nice to see more of them.
Yeah, I know Firefox has some PIR stuff that they were using for at least some of their metrics, and like Chrome might have had it at some point. They don't currently, and instead take steps for either like anonymizes the metrics at submission or like doesn't record anything that has too low of a prevalence of like how many clients it sees it on for things that might involve like a URL.
Yeah.
And, that's still like, good practice. I have faith that they're doing it because I work there, but like it would be good to not have to trust them.
Exactly.
But if you do want to know like more on that, I think Zakir Drumrich and one of his students, Kimberly Ruth, did a paper, a worldwide view of browsing the World Wide Web that used a bunch of that Chrome data, and so they describe all of the like practices as part of that. And so that's probably a good reference. I'm sure they're on Google's site somewhere too, but if you want to like see it from a third party.
Cool. All right. Side channels and backdoors. It wouldn't be a real world crypto if there wasn't an SGX just falling on its butt talk. And I love these because it reinforces my biases.
I thought Intel got rid of SGX, like
for specific consumers, I forget exactly, but blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Do I recognize some of these names? I think Daniel Genkin and Andrew Miller. I think they are part of the usual suspects who look at any secure enclave or trusted compute or SGX-like environment, and they're just like, let me at them. Okay, what else? Randomness in Cisco?
In the Cisco Adaptive Security Appliance.
What is that?
Well, I first encountered Cisco ASAs almost 10 years ago now. Like, we had just built Census.
Yeah.
And I had seen this, like, article on some no-name, like, it showed up on Hacker News, I think, but it was from some, like, random website that was like, oh, hey, sometimes, like, your mail SMTP connections can be downgraded to not use start TLS. By changing the command on the wire.
Yeah.
And then when we built, like, Census internally, I was like, I wonder what happens if I search for a bunch of X's in this field, like, which is what they were doing on mail. And it was something like 10% of all the mail servers that we saw. And so we were like, what's going on here? And so we wrote a paper, neither Rain nor Snow nor MITM, back in 2015 in partnership with Google, that was characterizing how often, like, opportunistic Start TLS was getting downgraded. And the primary downgrader was Cisco appliances that were doing it so they could inspect the mail. Because, like, if it gets encrypted, then they can't read the contents in a middle box.
Boo. It smells exactly like the Great Firewall feels, which is like, you are not allowed. Because we're not.
as you know, like, if you do a good job, you won't see this at all, right? Like, if the attacker is talented. But I, like, went through every error message that we got in a scan and, like, grouped them and bucketed them and was like, okay, so this one, bucket that out, keep going. And I did find one that only showed up on, like, 4 servers where they replaced chunking with funking, and they replaced, I don't remember what they replaced start TLS with, but it was only on 4 mail servers, and they were all in Ukraine, and this was they were all in Crimea in 2015.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, well, I know what's happening here.
That's funny. I don't hear much about this. So in this paper or this presentation, ECDSA nonces, shutter, in key duplication in a large amount of X509 certificates generated by Cisco ASA gateways. After some yada yada yadas, we recover some RSA keys, some ECTSA keys, and signature nonces. Holy moly. Okay.
It's like the Debian weak keys all over again.
Yeah. Nonces, ECDSA, bad randomness, shutter. We have a little section in our Schnorr signature thing about mitigating bad randomness because for all of these reasons, but it's slightly different with ECDSA. I think ECDSA is even more fragile with the bad nonces, but fun. And then we've got friend of the pod, Matt Green, and Nadia Henniger, and a bunch of other people, speaker Adam Sewell. Backdoor in Macaulay Schnorr generator. So this is like flavors of dual EC DRBG, but it's this other one, and Macaulay Shore DRBG.
Ultimately, we were unsuccessful in finding a plausible backdoor in it, so
Bring
should
more
be
attention.
interesting. But
okay, all right.
Definitely the people to look at that.
Yes.
Moving on, we've got a section on messaging and encryption, including the Threema stuff that we've already discussed on this podcast.
Interop. I think this is about EU Digital Markets Act. I think this is a lot of policy stuff that'll affect deploying end-to-end encryption stuff for messaging. This is a cool one, metadata protection for MLS and its variants. I think this is a follow-on from either another paper by these researchers or just another paper about now if you switch from a signal world to an MLS world, which is messaging layer security, you have this, async ratcheting tree between all these people about how to figure out how to encrypt messages to thousands and thousands of group members. How do you protect the privacy of the group metadata, of any other metadata about your secure messaging session? And it turns out once you all can agree on a secret key material, you can do a lot of stuff with it. And I think they're using that to sign and encrypt metadata about the group, and then you can check that everything is good by verifying signatures with some of the same stuff. I think from a quick skim, that's what this is about. But it's cool to see. There's a nice line of research coming out of like, we have MLS now. Now, like, how do we get some good stuff out of that in this kind of new way to do group end-to-end encrypted group messaging, new compared to say Signal? I'm excited to see that. And then deniability. This is interesting because like how deniability is not used in practice and the challenges arising from the design of a deniable system. Yeah.
Just nobody takes advantage of that property.
Okay, we're going to
But maybe that means that it's like successful because nobody's doing the thing that you would do if it didn't have that property either.
Right. FHE and multi-party computation, real world FHE, invited talk, Shruti. Cool. Prime match, privacy preserving inventory matching system. Okay. Trading financial stocks. Okay. Yeah, interesting.
I'm not sure we need more anonymity in financial stocks, but if there's a reason for it, I'm sure they'll tell us.
Benchmarks of prime match production adopted by JP Morgan. Interoperable private attribution.
At least it wasn't adopted by Silicon Valley Bank, am I right?
Oh, God. Am I right? IPA, private advertising. Yeah. And this is one of the applications of multi-party computation that I am aware of, which is like matching advertisers with ads and targets. So interesting. Learn more.
Google has a bunch of work in that space under the privacy sandbox banner.
Yeah. Okay. Speed running the rest of these. Hack spec. Love a hack spec. I endorse hack spec. It lets you write something that looks like Rust to have a, kind of a reference implementation of a crypto primitive or whatever, but you can compile it to EasyCrypt, Cock, Jasmine, and a bunch of cool backends. It's very fun.
Yep.
High Assurance Go from friend of the pod, Filippo Valsorda. Yay, love Filippo. He's doing this on his own now, kind of like an independent Go cryptographer.
Professional open source maintainer, I believe.
Yes, a cool way to do it. That's not just like, please donate to my Patreon to support my open source software sort of deal. He's doing it a different way. This is cool. CryptOp, proofs in Cock, targeting, they're connecting it up with fiat crypto, which is also doing a bunch of stuff in Cock, and then you can compile it to your, a C target, a Rust target. I've used it for stuff. It's very nice. This is neat. I'm interested. Privacy, CK proofs. Oh, Dan Bonet and Trish Dada to fight disinformation.
Interesting.
I am very interested in this because I was part of a workshop recently where we had all these tabletops about say it's 30 years in the future and the prime minister of your country has just died and the oppressive government is trying to say he just died for non-suspicious reasons. And the rebels are trying to say he was killed because he was too sympathetic with the rebels, blah, blah, blah. How do you deal with this with all the technology that's theoretically available in 30 years? And it just all devolved into just campaigns and appeals to emotion and trusted speakers and we were trying to be does technology or cryptography help at all in this scenario? We're nope, we don't trust any of it. It's just so this is kind of interesting because I'm my first instinct is it's not going to help, but I want to see what Dan Bonet says about it.
It looks to be about verifying where and when a digital image is taken, which is interesting. Then there's a retrospective from DARPA about real-world crypto, which should be interesting.
Okay, cool.
Next session is all about threshold crypto, which I think NIST is doing a threshold crypto
threshold signatures
challenge. Oh, threshold signatures next.
and leading with Chelsea, go Chelsea, and Elizabeth Kreitz and Tim Ruffing. Yep, there's a bunch of Frost stuff, also Musig 2 stuff that you can, hopefully use in your future Bitcoin signatures. You can use in your Zcash signatures and a whole bunch of signatures. Threshold ECDSA. I think Frost is better. And then blockchain, a new primitive called verifiably encrypted threshold key derivation. Ooh, I need to learn about this. I'm familiar with Aisling Connolly, no relation. I'm pretty sure there's no relation. All the Connollys know each other and are related to each other, just statistically speaking. Okay, advanced encryption.
The last session of the conference.
What's TLOC? Time lock encryption based on threshold BLS. Cool. All right. Portunus access control distributed system attribute-based encryption. Cool. All right. Key manager sort of dealies. And last talk, ask your cryptographer if context committing AEAD is right for you. From Mahir Balare, Phil Rogaway. This is like a Thomas Risen part. This is a Paul Grubbs. This is like a star-studded collection. Yes, commitment in AEAD. I think I saw this paper. It's pretty cool. Context commitment not seeing the same kind of attacks as key commitment. Standardization efforts are therefore target context commitment. I'm interested in this because there's a lot of talk about committing to your protocol transcript, about committing to all, like if you're doing a proof or you're doing a signature, there's all these things that you want to put into the protocol you're running, or the keys or the nonces or the commitments or all the sort of stuff that you're putting into the thing that you are going to verify at the end to make sure that everything is kosher and no one has tampered with it. And so I think this is basically taking the sort of authenticated encryption with additional data and basically expanding that additional data to have more context to it. And maybe there's some good reason to do that. Cool.
Yep. That's the program.
That's Real World Crypto. I'm excited. I'm going to go make it to Japan and have a very busy week and hopefully see some people. And I will try to live tweet it on Elon Musk's Twitter.com.
I was at Enigma, a month or two ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I kept seeing people wearing security, cryptography, whatever, hoodies and stuff. And I'm like, shit, I don't even have one of those. All I have is a mug. It was a very weird experience.
It's cool. Real people in the real world do buy our merch and wear our merch.
And then people who didn't have the merch were starting to feel left out. So be sure to get merch before you go to Real World Crypto.
Merch
we make dozens of
.com.
cents per purchase. We've decreased our profit margins as much as possible. So.
I can tell you we have made $100 from in profits from all the merch that we have made. No, the merch is just for fun. We like the merch. And maybe because someone was like, oh, could we do a thingy? There might be some more merch soon, but I don't know if we'll do it before Real World Crypto.
And we have a new website. It's at the same domain, securitycryptography.whatever.com, but we will be posting transcripts there. Episodes will be listenable there, as well as, wherever you get your podcasts. And some of the transcripts may even be very nicely edited.
And so you can read it nicely on a nice web page. And you can link to the web page, and it looks like something close to a blog post or an article version of the episodes, not just some weird link that doesn't seem to make any sense anyway.
Not a link to a random Descript URL or a random Buzzsprout URL.
That get tied to versions of Descript that I didn't realize. People are like, your links are rotting. Like, oh shit, that's because we upgraded.
We're fighting
Descript.
link rot at SCW Pod.
Yeah, so we have that new website, same place, same great SCW place, same great SCW time. Cool. That's it. Bye.
Security, Cryptography, Whatever is a side project from Deirdre Connolly, Thomas Potachik, and David Adrian. Our editor is Nettie Smith. You can find the podcast on Twitter at SCWPod, and the hosts on Twitter at Durham Crustulum, at TQBF, and at David C. Adrian. You can buy merchandise at merch.securitycryptographywhatever.com. Thank you for listening.